Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the I'm First Google Hangout. This month, we will be chatting scholarships. Now, I know last month we had a really long hangout talking about FAFSA and financial aid, and you're probably tired of hearing about that by now. I'm pretty sure that's you dream about, financial aid forms, but we really want to take the time out and give you some really great information on scholarships, some of the best places you can go to apply for scholarships, and just give you a better sense of the process. So once you actually do start, you'll sort of have a leg up on other students who are applying. We have a great host of panelists today that are pretty much experts when it comes to scholarships. So we're really, really excited to talk to you about the process. So I'm going to turn it over to them and they can introduce themselves. And once they introduce themselves, we'll jump right into the questions that will give you a better sense of the scholarship process. So Kim, can you introduce yourself and then we can just go down the line.
Sure. Thanks for having me here. My name is Kim Stazala. I'm known as the Scholarship Lady, and I'm also a consultant to scholarship providers.
Hi, my name is Maria Ornelas, and I'm one of the Senior Assistant Directors here at Vanderbilt University, and I helped coordinate scholarship committees here on our campus.
Hello, I'm Chanel Thomas, Assistant Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships, and I coordinate our MED Scholarship Program and all of our need-based scholarships here at Vanderbilt.
Hi everyone, my name is Nympha Murillo and I'm a retention officer with the Dell Scholars Program at the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. So we are a college completion program that also awards a scholarship, and just excited to talk about this topic, one because I work in the scholarship field, but also because scholarships played such an important role in funding my education as well.
Awesome, thank you, ladies. So as you guys can see, we have a great panelist. They have a ton of great information for you. So without further delay, we are going to jump right into our questions. The first question is for Kim and Maria. What is a scholarship and how is it different than other types of financial aid?
Maria, do you want to start that?
Sure thing. So scholarships are typically forms of financial aid that don't require you to pay them back once you've graduated from a college. They also may recognize different accomplishments and achievements that you've attained throughout your high school experience. So it can be based on your academic merits. It can be based on your merits being a part of the student organizations, based on any leadership roles that you've had. So they do recognize different accomplishments that you've been able to earn during that four-year experience.
And sometimes I call scholarships like the wild card of financial aid, because you really sometimes, I mean, you can't control your parents' income level or which grants that you might qualify for. But with scholarships, if you're an entrepreneurial person, you can really, dig up some good scholarships that might match your profile and apply for them on your own. So it's a little bit different than other types of financial aid, but the bottom line is every scholarship dollar you earn is one less dollar you owe.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question is for Chanel and Ninfa. Are scholarships based on academic or financial need?
Scholarships can actually be based on both academics and financial need, and those are academics are looking, at your GPA, your academic courses you took in school, and even at testing, possibly on the ACT and SAT. And then those scholarships based on financial need are looking at a family situation as far as income and assets. But there are other things that are looked at as well for scholarships. Sometimes it will be academic interest, it will be artistic talent, particular field of study or community service. So scholarships can cover a variety of things and not just academics or financial need, but actually both.
In financial need can be determined in different ways. One way is that a lot of scholarship providers might use the FAFSA. So definitely, it sounds like you all talked about the FAFSA in the previous hangout. So it's really, really important to get that in early to make sure, because that might be a requirement to have that completed to be able to apply for the scholarship as well, because they'll use that to determine what type of financial need you'll have. Or some institutions use their own method of determining financial need, whether it be the CSS profile or some additional requirements that they might ask you to provide. So it's always important to just really look at the requirements early on to make sure that you'll have all that information to be able to apply. And just kind of an example of just the variety of the requirements that might be or what scholarships might be looking for. As an example, for our scholarship, we look at both. So we're looking at the financial need, which we determine by the FAFSA. So being Pell Grant eligible is one way. We have a minimum GPA of a 2.4, and you have to be able to participate in a approved college readiness program, be able to speak to how you overcame adversity and what you learned from it, and then also have a well thought out college plan. So I think that's just an example of just, it could include one or both and so many additional other requirements.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question is about sort of the composition of what makes up a scholarship application. Because as we know, as you guys know, as students, college applications can be pretty long. You got all of this information to fill out on top of essays, on top of essays, on top of essays, and all of these different things. So what makes up a scholarship application? And this is for Kim and Ninfa.
Well, I would say most scholarship applications are very similar. They're going to ask for background information on your academics, maybe your extracurriculars. They usually require some proof of what you accomplished, so they might ask for a transcript. There could be letters of recommendation or an essay. I've found recently, I would say like maybe over the last 5 years or so, that some scholarship providers are actually going to short answers. So they're looking, instead of a full 500-word or 1,000-word essay, they're really sort of narrowing down what they're asking of students, because they're the ones that have to read all of these essays, which are not all created equal. Some folks are better writers than others. But they might just require, that 250-word answer to their question. And I know one of the biggest mistakes students can make is not answer the question that they asked you. And I think it was Ninfa, I think it was Dell that did some research, Dell Scholars, and found out that 90% of the information requested on scholarship applications is the same. So I'm wondering if you just want to talk a little bit about that, or what your application is like.
Yeah, so that was one thing that we looked at, and a lot of the applications will require the same information, such as your name, your address, your grades, your academic information, and sometimes very similar essay questions that it might just be reworded. Or so in terms of like the investment, the time that you have, once you have a really complete scholarship application, there's definitely parts that you're going to be able to use that information in a various amount of scholarships. Of course, we would definitely recommend tailoring, to different scholarships to make sure that you are answering the question, and that you are understanding what that scholarship is looking for, which you can get more information about that, like if it's an organization or a particular foundation, really researching and seeing, is this an organization that really values service or leadership or whatever that might be, so that way that kind of stands out a little bit more in your essays. And one tip that I would give is just making sure that you're really well organized with all of the requirements, with the deadlines, what they require, the timing. Sometimes because we're so busy, we want to, we say, oh, we can kind of tackle this the night before. But if you have a recommendation letter requirement, there is sort of those courtesies that you give in saying, let's give the recommender a couple of weeks to be able to get that information to you. So just one of the, just in terms of preparing to apply for scholarships, just really list them, deadlines, what they require, what you have to follow up and do, just to keep you really well organized during a very busy time.
Awesome, thank you. So this is a question that wasn't given, but it was one that I thought of, and it's really, really important. So in terms of types of scholarships. I didn't write down renewable and non-renewable scholarships and understanding what that means. So anybody can take this question, but it would be great if you could sort of define what a renewable scholarship is, what a non-renewable scholarship is, and how they are different, because I think that's something that students may or may not understand, and it can really tie them up when it comes to understanding the scholarship package or their financial aid package.
I can speak to that. It's a renewable scholarship basically means that if you meet all the terms and the terms or the agreement that you had with the scholarship provider, for instance, to maintain a 3.0 GPA, to maintain full-time enrollment, etc., and you can do that through the first year, it means that they may renew your scholarship the second year. One of the complaints I hear from scholarship providers is when they don't hear back from students. And quite often, whether it's on online or on paper, you need to simply verify, yes, I'm still enrolled, yes, I still want your scholarship money, yes, I have a 3.0, and they might, and that's just an example, the 3.0, and it might require someone in the financial aid office to verify that or sign off on that. And it's such a simple thing, yet I'm not really sure why students don't take that extra step unless they didn't continue to meet the eligibility criteria. So it's a great question, Chelsea. It's sort of something that gets overlooked sometimes. You know, I kind of tell students your one best chance to get scholarships when you're heading to college is before you get there, because that's when the colleges are making the offer to you if they're offering scholarship money, which again, in many cases includes those very valuable renewable ones. And then private scholarship providers, again, when you're in high school headed to college, it's just a great time, that time where they're offering those initial scholarships.
And I know what, like our particular scholarship, there is a renewal process. They come in, you know, every year and let us know how they did, and there's some questions that we ask. And we do have a GPA requirement, but we our college completion program, so we are willing to work with the students if they, you know, if they kind of hit a hiccup or a setback. So I would really, one, you know, understand your scholarship requirements, but the other thing is you know, with private scholarships or even institutional scholarships, is really having that conversation, you know, if they had a particular GPA requirement, and just being able to speak to them and say, this is kind of what happened, you know, I took a load that wasn't balanced or whatever it may be, but you've worked really hard to get it, you know, so it's worth having a conversation if you did not meet those requirements to see if they're willing to work with you and maybe put you on a probationary period to see if you can meet those again, because we hear from students all the time and they just never get in contact with us, and then finally we reach them and they said, you know, oh, I thought I lost my scholarship because I didn't meet your GPA requirement. And it's like, no, you know, we're willing to work with you. We definitely understand the college journey, so always, you know, communicate. And then the other thing, especially if it's not going to be renewable, if it's just a one-time scholarship, like you just receive it 1 year, and that's one thing that I really tell our scholars is that scholarship application process doesn't just happen once, so it's a continued process throughout your college career. So continue to apply for scholarships, you know, once you're in college, because there are some institutional scholarships that might just be for sophomores or juniors or particular majors, or you changed your major and so now you're eligible for more scholarships. So so it's something that should be on your checklist. You know, you have your checklist of renewing your FAFSA application. So another, you know, checkpoint would be applying for more scholarships as you continue to be during your college journey. And the winter break, I know you all want to take a break during your winter break, but I always found that was a really good time to just kind of, you know, look through what scholarships can I still apply for, and take that time to make and to submit those applications.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. It wasn't written down, but it was something I thought of, and I know it's really, really important for students to understand the difference of renewable and non-renewable and what details go into both. So again, thank you, ladies. So the next question is, when should students start searching for their scholarships? And this is for Maria and Chanel.
Yeah, students should start searching for scholarship as early as their sophomore, junior year of high school, or even earlier. There are websites out there, or even your simple Google searches, or going to fastweb.com or other websites to start looking, because you can start applying that early, or you can just kind of see what's out there. Also, another important thing is if you know the type of school the school are interested in, to go ahead and search their websites and see what scholarships are available and see their deadlines so that you can kind of know those school-specific awards. And they may also have websites that they recommend as well to look for scholarships, and also want to start talking to your parents' employer. If they work at a particular company, they may have options for scholarships. And what's that process? When do you have to apply? Do you have to let them know a year early that you're going, or is it once you're enrolled? So I say it's never too early to start looking for scholarships.
And then just make sure that the timeline for your scholarship searches really meshes up well with your admissions college application process as well. For example, our scholarship deadlines are slightly earlier than our regular decision application deadline. So we do want to make sure that our students don't miss the boat just because of the simple miscommunication or just confusion about actual deadlines at our college.
And one thing to add, man, getting a calendar specific for scholarships and application deadlines to keep track of those, especially if you're looking at multiple schools, in order to keep track of when things are due, and so that you don't miss those opportunities.
Definitely.
Great, thank you. So the next question is for Chanel and Kim, and it's about should students be charged, or should students pay to search for scholarships? And is that sort of process legit? I know everyone goes to Google for everything, including looking for scholarships. So if a student is prompted to pay to receive a scholarship, or pay to even search a scholarship, is that process legit?
No. There's so much free information out there, and I don't know, if you want to pay your little brother to look up scholarships for you on Google or something, maybe that's one way to go. But there's so many good quality, high quality sites out there where you can enter in your personal profile and get matching information. I always tell students, and don't pay for it. But it's more than just, like, again, Googling online or visiting these websites. You can look in print, the old-fashioned print, where there might be lists at your guidance office. Or what we used to do is we would look at all of the high schools in the city's websites. So not just scholarship search engines, we'd look at other high schools and see what are they telling their students and what scholarships are there. I've mentioned this before. I will say, however, that sometimes it's worth it to pay membership dues to a legit student chapter organization. My example is PRSA, which was the Public Relations Society of America student chapter. I think in my time maybe it was $50 or something to join. But what that does is it gives you access to networking and having access to the people in your field that might know about scholarships. And those student chapters, or their national chapters, professional societies, might offer scholarships to members. So that's the only case where I would tell students, again, kind of read between the lines there. You'd never pay for just a generic search engine, but maybe if it's a membership to a certain student group or something like that, that's a little different. It's just a nuance, I think, in the question that I like to point out. Chanel, do you have anything to add?
Yes, just want to say definitely agree. You should not pay for any of those scholarship searches. It has been found that paid sites are no better than the free sites, and you can get just as much information if you were to use those free searches. And then also be aware sometimes scholarships may have a hidden fee, application fee, and you would want to stay away from those as well, but definitely agree.
Great. So moral of the story is, do not pay to search for scholarships or even to apply. So really, really good information to know. Alrighty, so after talking about sort of not paying for scholarships or having to apply for them, where are some of the best websites that students can use to begin their scholarship search? And this is for Maria and Ninfa.
Well, Chanel mentioned one of the sites that we recommend to our families, fastweb.com. Again, it's a free search engine that accesses a lot of different scholarships that might be more national in scope. They might be really niche kind of scholarships to certain types of students applying for certain types of programs. So those are really good search engines. Another one that we usually use is the College Board's, I think it's Big Future, just to be able to not only search your colleges, but also to be able to search any of the scholarships that they might be associated with, or any, again, of those random scholarships. Don't also forget about those community-based organizations, whether they are local churches, where they might be local foundations. Your parent's employer is a good place as well. But sometimes just really understanding and networking within your own communities really goes a long way. So not always just going to a website and plugging things away.
Yeah, and great sites. I believe that Chegg also just acquired Cinch, which was a big scholarship search, and so I think theirs is fairly new, so I haven't gone through it, but I did look and it was up, so that's another one. I don't know, Maria, if you mentioned the university websites in case, if they have a special scholarship page. I know for like my state, I was from Oregon, but we had a state-specific site, the Oregon Student Assistance Commission site, where we were able to do a general or a common app and apply to hundreds of scholarships at once. So you might have a state that has that as well.
Great, thank you. And I want to remind students again, while a lot of great stuff is found online, just checking in your local community, you might come up with you might be able to find great scholarships that local churches or local banks or even small businesses are offering to students in the community. So while the internet is a great resource, definitely encourage you to get out into your community and ask around about scholarships that you may be eligible for. Alrighty, so we are going to move on to the next question, and this one is for Chanel and Kim. So once a student is accepted to a college, how can they apply for scholarships at that particular school?
Well, I know for one thing, you want to make sure and check each school's website prior to applying, because each school has a separate process for scholarships. So you want to make sure that you have not already missed the process. I say very important not to wait until you're accepted into a particular school to then seek scholarships. As, for example, for Vanderbilt, our scholarship deadlines are in advance or in December before you know if you have been accepted to our university. So it's very important to research and look at each school, because the process is not the same across the board. And then also sometimes some scholarships you can go and look and see if there's some state scholarships too now that you've been accepted. And if you know you're going to go to an in-state school, for example, here we have a Tennessee Hope Scholarship. There may be some processes there that you can do once you know that's where you're going to attend school. But for me, I would say don't wait until you're accepted. Probably go in advance to check out those scholarships at those institutions.
And I would only add that, the question, once you're accepted or once you're there, as Maria alluded to earlier, there's some scholarships that you can't even apply for until you've declared your major or until you have junior status or whatever it is. And I found, I worked on a university campus, and it was my job to collect scholarship information, and I found that even though, again, these official rosters or the official website are supposed to be the primary resource, sometimes it was just professors or deans or even the secretary in the office who knew about these other scholarships that, maybe weren't going to make it into the search engine or something like that. So again, just going back to earlier advice, networking, letting people know that you're looking for scholarships. Community foundations are another place. So once you get accepted, let's say you're going to a school in your state, well, some community foundations have their own list and their own database and their own application process, where usually those scholarships are reserved for people who are either staying in that county or that state. So it's once you get accepted, it's just like everyone else has said. You got to kind of keep on task, keep moving ahead, and keep looking for scholarships if you're serious about it. And if you, in fact, want that free money, it is free, but you'll have to keep looking and keep working for it.
Awesome. So really random thought I was thinking when you guys are talking. So it reminds me of Inception, like sort of scholarship Inception. You're in deep once, and then you're in deeper, and you're in deeper, and it's like, well, how did I get in so far in terms of searching for scholarships? But it's a good thing because it just shows you how much free money is out there, and all you have to do is look. As I know everyone's on like Snapchat and Instagram, and I know you look at everyone's pictures from 200 weeks ago. If you can go that far back in someone's Instagram profile, you can definitely spend some time searching for scholarships. So I say dedicate time for doing it. It'll definitely be beneficial in the long run. All right, so enough of that craziness. So we are going to head on to our next question. And this one is I changed it up a little bit. This one will actually be for Maria and Chanel. Just because you're specifically working at a university, so I'd love to hear your input on this. So will outside scholarships play a role in the amount of financial aid given to a student? What is that process like? Because I know I've heard before students not wanting to report outside scholarships to universities for the fear of receiving less money. So we'd just love to learn a little bit more about that.
Okay, so how will outside scholarships impact financial aid? Is pretty much what we're asking. So, and it can have an impact, especially if you have an institution that's meeting your need. And when you're there learning about financial aid, you probably hear about some schools can meet up to 100% of your demonstrated financial needs. So how does outside scholarships play into that? So the biggest thing I say is to ask each institution, because outside scholarships can have an impact on us. We have a component within our financial aid packages, and so that outside scholarship can go towards that work component, but then it can trade dollar for dollar with the rest of the need-based aid that a student is receiving. So outside scholarships can have an impact, and just encourage that those students talk to those different schools and ask what their policy is on outside scholarships.
Mm-hmm. And I would just only add that your expected family contribution, or EFC, that comes off of the financial aid forms, that is going to be static when you're looking at college A versus college B. That is always going to be there. That is just how they expect your family to contribute towards your education. So unfortunately, your outside scholarships, you would have to really learn how to stack them all up in order to start chipping away at that expected family contribution. And that would have to be a lot, and that's kind of what we're here for, is to help you through that scholarship process.
Right. I mean, that's one question that we get a lot is, I receive this outside scholarship, does this decrease the amount that I have to pay? And we always tell families when we're doing that analysis of your FAFSA or your CSS profile, your EFC, your family contribution, stays your family contribution. So.
Awesome, thank you.
And
yeah, go for it.
Something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know, because we work with when we award the scholarship, we get that question a lot from our scholarship recipients, like, how do I report my scholarship? And I'm not understanding, for some institutions that, for example, replace their institutional aid first before their loans, and then they're like, why did that happen? I'm confused. So it varies from institution to institution. So, and it can be a very, complex issue to really understand what replaced what and how much. And what we always say is, our goal is to try to reduce, with the scholars that we work with, the student debt that they take, and being able to maximize the scholarships that they receive. And so, again, the communication, in addition to, is really talking to your outside scholarships as well, because if we are going to put our scholarship recipients in a situation where they might have their institutional aid reduced and still have to take out the loans that they were originally offered, we can work with that student and say, our goal is to reduce your loan debt, so we can work with you. You can defer it in case your package, changes your sophomore, junior, senior years. You can defer to use for summer classes instead if you're going to take that. You can even defer, in our particular case, to use for loan repayments once you graduate or grad school or whatever the case might be. And being part of the National Scholarship Providers Association, I know that that's something that more outside scholarships are more willing to do, and saying, let's have our students maximize the scholarships that they receive and are open to more of that deferment or loan repayments and those types of things. So I would just encourage you to talk to the scholarship that you receive to make sure that you understand what you can do with it, and get some help. That's someone that can really sit down, and financial aid offices can be a great resource. Or if you have your college readiness program coordinator, or even your scholarship provider. I know that we do that counseling where we sit down with students and really look at their financial aid packages and what other outside scholarships did they receive, what's the total expenses that they will have, how much did they receive. So again, use all your resources, because at the end of the day, you should really walk away knowing what your expenses are, what aid you received, how much out of pocket you're going to be able to pay, are there any gaps in your expenses, and what will my loan debt possibly be here my first year and even long term, and that can even make a decision on where you decide to go to school. So it's a very, very, very important information.
Great, thank you. So the next question will be for Kim and Ninfa. So some students may write off large national scholarships, just assuming, 4,000 students are going to apply for this. I don't really stand a chance in winning. Is that a good idea? Why or why not?
Well, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, because the answer is it depends. So, I'm aware of some scholarships that have 80,000 students applying for them, and the scholarship provider very generously awards 250. But still, you've got to do the odds. So when I work with students, I do encourage them to apply for those large national scholarships if they meet and are above and beyond the criteria that's being asked on there, and they're willing to put in the effort to write the best essay they have ever written. When you're at that level, it is highly competitive, and you can't just submit mediocre work and think that you're going to win. I'm also aware of some smaller local scholarships where the odds of winning are 1 out of 2. 1 out of 2 people that apply win. So it's, I actually have a chart I use with students, but you could very easily just look on the website. Sometimes they will tell you how many people applied the year before, and then usually there's happy smiling faces of the winners or people who got the scholarships count, okay, so about how many people win. But it's really important. And then what I encourage students to do is, if you think you have a shot at those national ones, absolutely go for it. I've interviewed some students that have won some of these large national scholarships, and what they told me is that simply applying for that highly competitive scholarship then prepared them to apply for all these other scholarships. And some of those large national ones have much earlier deadlines. You're talking October or November of your senior year of high school to get money for the next fall, because they're going through tens of thousands of applications, or however many they need to get to the semifinals and finals. And so it's really, again, I go back, it just depends. But if you think you have a shot and you meet all the criteria, and you think you would, again, score well kind of against the competition, then go for it. I mean, those are usually the ones that are 4-year scholarships, so they're renewable, as Chelsea said earlier. Oftentimes they have scholar networks or even alumni networks connected with them, so it's not always just about the money either. I know Dell Scholars obviously has a great college success and retention piece. You become part of a community as well, so that's like a bonus on top of getting this free money for college. So I'm curious, what Ninfa thinks about that.
Yeah, I agree with Kim in saying it's a national. We know we are a national scholarship, but if you turn in a quality application and you meet the requirements, you have a shot. Because we hear so often, when we do award it, is saying, I thought this was a long shot and I wasn't going to, be able to get it. But, again, and emphasizing what Kim said, it has to be a quality application because we can tell when it's like, I put this together the night before kind of thing. But as you mentioned, we ask quite a few short essays, and those those responses can be used on possibly other scholarships applications as well. So I would just say ditto to everything that Kim said. But of course, if you're a good fit, definitely apply. And one thing that we get a lot from students is, again, going back to really understanding what the scholarship is looking for, because our minimum GPA is a 2.4. And so, oftentimes, and if you were to kind of really go through our website and really understand, is that we are going to put more emphasis on the rigor of your coursework and the adversity that you ever overcame, and we understand that there are responsibilities outside in our particular student population that that speaks to their merit and their determination to be able to complete school. And so really understanding that, and if it speaks to you, like, that's me, I'm not a straight A student, but I took all the rigorous courses, I have overcome so much adversity and all of these things, then that's the scholarship for you. So a lot of the times we've had students that were not A students and said, well, I was hesitant to apply because I thought that I had to have really good grades. So again, really know that scholarship you're applying for, the requirements. Go through their websites and see, like, what they're really looking for. Because there's some scholarships that are, for example, are going to say, we value community service above, your academics, even perhaps, or or they have a minimum GPA. And so if you have a really strong community service record, then that's going to be a great fit for you as well. So it takes time, but it's worth the investment of the time. It gets really busy, like your senior year, and we understand that in terms of applying for scholarship. Getting your admission essays. With a lot of times, those can be used on scholarship essays as well. And it's a really, really busy time. My daughter's a freshman in college, and so I remember her senior year, and she was just like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy, because she just had so many things, and she was, getting ready for graduation, and she had, she wanted to retake some of her tests, and so I really pushed her to that summer to say, you really need to get all your application essays done and have those ready, because it's going to get really, really, really busy. And I know junior year might be a really good year to start prepping for that as well. So I know that time is going to be a challenge, so really planning for it, because you think like, oh, I'm going to have plenty of time, when school starts and I have to do this, but it gets really, really busy.
Definitely, thank you. And I love what Kim said about scholarships not just being sort of the financial aspect, but also being able to become a part of a community or somewhat of a family, and being able to network with alum of the different programs or organizations. That's really a key part, because that can obviously assist you while you're in college, but also once you graduate, having these networks and getting out there in the professional world and knowing people in different places. So it's not all about the money, even though it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. So definitely think about that as you're applying for these types of scholarships. So national scholarships are a way to go. I know when I was applying, I'm like, I'm never going to get this scholarship. 15,000 people across the country are going to apply, and I ended up getting 3 large scholarships. So don't sell yourself short, pretty much, is what I'm trying to get to. All right, so the next question is sort of on the reverse, and we'll be talking about sort of the smaller local $500 scholarships. This question will be for Kim and Maria. So scholarships that are sort of smaller amounts, about $500 or less, are often overlooked by students. So why should students even apply for these types of scholarships?
Sure. I would just say that they tend to stack up pretty nicely, and they take care of a lot of the minor expenses that students often forget about. You know, paying for food or taking care of your books and supplies at the beginning of the semester. There's quite a few different local community organizations that offer book scholarships because they know that easily you can rack up $500, $700 in just books alone. So being able to take care of those often smaller, overlooked expenses can really be done through those smaller scholarship programs. And I don't know if she has any other perspectives that she would like to add.
Yes, well, what I would say is, you know, the $500 ones, I agree, they're great. I'm trying to advocate within the scholarship community that people up that amount a little bit, because $500 20 years ago doesn't buy what $500 buys now. So the average scholarship is about $1,900. If you take like all the scholarships in the whole country, just your average undergraduate student, you know, that's the average amount they're bringing in. And so what I tell students is you shouldn't feel bad if you only won $500 or $1,000. Again, every dollar you get is one less dollar you owe. And so I know of many students who didn't win any of the large national ones, but like Maria is saying, they were able to stack up a lot of these local ones. And if you think about the psychology of giving, okay, the people who are giving away the money for free, what I've heard from smaller scholarship providers is, number one, they like to be that first little scholarship that you won. They want to just, you know, kind of help out a local kid, and then what happens is when maybe a county scholarship or a state scholarship, or somebody sees that you've already won $500, it's almost like a stamp of approval. And the students that I've interviewed, they told me that it's like it was almost had like a snowball effect, and that they're so glad that they applied for those small little scholarships, because on the scholarship application sometimes it'll say, have you won any other scholarships? And then you put it down, it's like, oh wow, they must be good. So and so gave them money, so and so gave them money. And it's something we don't think about a lot, but it really is about the psychology of giving, and how you know, charitable people, you know, they want to make a good investment, if you will, and they want to be sure that money is not going to be wasted. So I think sometimes we maybe the word is social affirmation amongst scholarship providers, so they're seeing who else gave that student money. And the other reason I think why you should apply for those is they can be confidence boosters. So students, once they win one of those, they might feel good. They might, as other people have said, they might look at how they answered the questions on there, and then maybe take that, refine it a little, and apply it to another scholarship. So I think there's lots of reasons why to apply for those types of scholarships.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, again, I would say apply for any scholarship you're eligible for, because as Kim said, the more money you get is the less money you owe, or whatever the case may be. And even the smaller scholarships, you know, okay, it's only $1,000, but depending on what they allow you to use it for, if you're from California and you're going to school in New York, you can use that money to get, you know, to get home for Thanksgiving to see your mom and your siblings, or different things like that. So definitely think about, you know, the outside of sort of the tuition of college and the cost of college. Think about different things in terms of feeding yourself, how you're going to get back and forth during holidays, or, you know, if you do have a job off campus, how are you going to get back and forth there? So once you get to college, there are definitely a lot of expenses that you probably aren't thinking about. So as you're applying for your scholarships, just like, yo, I'm trying to get all of the money I possibly can. I don't care if the scholarship is for $100. I'm applying because that's $100 less out of your pocket. So great answers. I really appreciate you guys talking a bit about the differences and why students should just apply for large scholarships and also small scholarships. So good stuff. Alrighty. So the next question is sort of the process after a student has been awarded a scholarship. So what are some of the next steps students should take once they've actually been awarded a scholarship? And this is for Ninfa and Chanel.
You want to go ahead, Nifa?
Sure. Just really understanding what the scholarship might require from you as well, and knowing when the funds will be dispersed. I know for example, our scholarship, we want our students to create an online profile on our student portal after they complete it by a certain deadline, and provide us some additional information. Like we actually request their final student aid awards, because we help students with the retention piece, so we want to make sure that they don't have any huge unmet gaps, or that there's anything else that might stick out to us that we want to speak to them about. So have an up-to-date email where we can reach you, up-to-date phone numbers. I will say and this is crazy to me, but we have had to forfeit students who went through that whole process of filling out our application and receiving $20,000 that they already had, and never completed their registration component or the additional requirements that we asked for, which, yeah, I'm like, what? But, making sure that you're checking your email and you have updated phone numbers. We have to be able to reach you in case there are those additional requirements. If you're in doubt, contact that scholarship provider to see if there were any additional requirements. And then I think another good follow-up step is just, starting to list what is all the aid that I am receiving, what are their scholarships, when will I hear? So oftentimes they'll say, well, I still have all these other scholarships pending, and we ask, like, when are you going to hear about those scholarships, or when the deadline know? Because again, that might impact what you might pay out of pocket. So just following up with them if they haven't answered that question. A thank you is always nice, in terms of the investment that they have in you. So I think that's just a nice touch to the founders, to be able to or to the folks that are giving the scholarships, and the other thing is the founders love to hear stories. Sometimes we even get tagged like on social media, which is great, and we get like video messaging, whatever that thank you might be. But that's always kind of a nice courtesy touch.
Well, I know once you are notified that you have won a scholarship, always read those guidelines, like Nifa said, and see what the requirements are to keep in that scholarship. Is it a one-time scholarship, or is it a renewable scholarship? And to follow up on the disbursement of that scholarship, when do they pay those funds? I know one thing for us as an institution, if that award is for the full year, that check should come to us twice. You should get one half of the check in the fall and one half in the spring. If a scholarship check is sent to us all at once in the fall for the full amount, we have to disperse that money all at one time. So that's one thing to be sure, and to ask about how those funds will be dispersed, because it could impact how it's applied to your bill or your student account once you go into a school. Another thing is to alert the school that you plan to attend of that scholarship, so they can put it on your financial aid award and incorporate it into your package, so that you can see if there are going to be any changes with that particular scholarship being added to your award.
Great, thank you. Alrighty, so we are actually at our last question, and the last question is for all of you. So out of everything that we talked about, and we've talked about a lot, and you have given a ton of great information, what are about 2 or 3 best pieces of advice that you think students should follow in terms of applying for scholarships? And you can go in any order.
Okay, I'll jump in first then. So this is hard for me because I literally wrote a book on how to win scholarship money. So that's why I was kind of hesitating, thinking, oh my goodness, 2 or 3 best pieces of advice. Number 1, if you are not a good writer, you should definitely invest in tutoring or editorial review by a friend or a teacher or somebody, and really try to invest in your writing skills. And the reason I say that again is, you know, I've yet to see a scholarship application that asks you to do a math problem, unless maybe it's like a STEM-related scholarship. But almost all of them are going to ask you, again, to write these 200, 300-word mini essays or short answers, and you only have so many words to convince them, right, that you're the best candidate. So that is just in every interaction I have with a student, that's number one, is polish your writing skills. And I would tell you what, because of the atrophy of writing skills, with lots of, you know, Snapchat and texting and whatever, the quality that we're getting as judges when we're reading these, let's just say if you hone and polish your writing skills, you will shine and you will stand out compared to the competition. The second piece of advice, it's again more about writing. I call it the 3 C's. It's, are you clear, are you consistent, and are you compelling? So clarity of thought, you know, means you're answering the question they ask you again. You're clear about what your intentions and your goals are. The consistency means if you tell me on your scholarship application that, you know, you have a 3.8 and all of a sudden I look at your transcript and it's only a 3.4, you know, bells are going off, red flags are going like, hey, what's going on? This isn't consistent information. Or again, if you tell us, you know, you're involved in all of these activities in your essay, but then you didn't put anything down on the application, these are just things that cause questions in the judge's mind, and you don't want those kinds of questions. And then lastly is to be compelling. So clear, consistent, and compelling application. I think some students, they're a little too safe in their writing. They use a lot of generic language. They use lots of adjectives. It was, you know, a very, 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 very difficult thing that I went through. That's a couple extra words than you need. You know, adverbs are your friend and verbs are your friend when you are writing. You know, someone took an action and did something, and part of your, you know, writing, compelling writing is a little bit like storytelling. You want to be factual and you want to be truthful. I'm not saying fabricate a story, but your own story that you're trying to convey, you know, you're the one best person to tell that story, and you get one shot to, you know, impress the scholarship judges. So I think I'll stop there, see what other folks have to say, and maybe I'll chime in later.
I'll add from the college perspective that I think one of my biggest pet peeves reviewing scholarship applications is seeing very similar essays from the admissions application as the one that has been submitted through the scholarship process. Our faculty members review both applications. They want to be able to see a different side of the student from one side of the application to the other side of the application. So maximize those opportunities, answer the questions fully, make sure that you're a real good fit for that particular scholarship as well, because sometimes if you're applying to one program but you're talking about another program in the scholarship application, it again is that lack of consistency for that particular scholarship committee member. So definitely making sure that you're maximizing the opportunities whenever possible.
And to add to that, I would say, especially for our university scholarships, be careful who you ask to write your letter of recommendations for you. Make sure they're able to advocate for you and that they also understand the question that's being asked regarding that scholarship, and that they understand the mission of that particular scholarship, so that they can make you shine to show that you are a good fit for that particular scholarship. And again, to the essays, make sure that you're answering the question that is actually being asked for those particular scholarships too. And then for us, another thing is deadlines. Make sure that you're looking at those. In some schools, at times we do give extensions, but there's only so far that can happen because of the process that has to take place in order to select those students for scholarships.
Wow, those were all great. I would definitely say start early and really build it into your calendar. Sometimes when you don't, write it in there, you're not going to get to it. So again, the summers are a really good time, your winter breaks are a really good time to just really, really sit down and get focused in looking for those scholarships. You know, as you all mentioned, the answer the question, we get this a lot. For example, one of our questions is along the lines of, you know, tell us an adversity that you overcame and what you learned from that and how you would apply that, you know, in your college. And so we often get those essays that say, this is the adversity I faced. And then we're like, okay, the second and third part of that question, you know, so really, really looking to making sure you go back and make sure that you answer that question. The other part is sometimes we give hints on the questions that we ask, that there's a reason for that, or those things are important to us. You know, so there's a whole part on our application that's about college preparation. So which school did you choose? What major did you choose? All of those types of things. So those are all like kind of hinting to saying this is a really important part, you know, of our application, and we really want to see that you took time into making your school selection, and that makes sense with your major and what you're studying, and your rigor of your coursework, and the coursework that you took, you know, aligns with what your major is. So nothing on there was really done by accident. You know, there's a reason why we put that particular question, or that reason, or that we were wanting to know that information. Really tell your story, and sometimes when I'm reading essays, it feels like some of the students may have assumed that we could fill in some of the gaps in their stories, or, you know, so we're not going to know anything beyond what you tell us. You know, in terms of, so really tell your story and make sure that you do fill any gaps, and that it does all make sense. And I think that goes back to Kim's also the compelling part. You know, so I feel when I'm reading essays, sometimes they stop short of like telling me the whole story, sort of thing, and oftentimes, you know, like, you know it in your head, and so don't assume that we're going to fill any gaps. We're just going to go with what you tell us and what you give us.
Awesome, thank you. And the one thing that I would add, I am no scholarship expert, but from my experience in sort of managing our scholarship, the I'm scholarship, just reading directions and understanding the criteria of the scholarship. I know we talked a little bit about that, and understanding if it's renewable and non-renewable. And if it is renewable, understanding what it is that you need to do to ensure that you get it again the next semester. A pet peeve of mine is students not sending in enrollment verification. That's literally all you have to do to get your $1,000. And then they don't send it in, and sometimes they say, oh, I didn't know, or X, Y, and Z. So just understanding, excuse me, what it is that the scholarship entails, and, you know, staying on top of it. I mean, this is free money. All you have to do is just fax in a certain form, or, you know, email a certain form, and then voila, the money will be in your mailbox in the next 5 to 7 days. So I'm just really encouraging students to really understand what it is that their scholarship entails, and following that through not just your freshman year, but if it's renewable, it's going to happen every single year, every semester. So being prepared for that when, you know, August or January comes, knowing, oh, I got the Umford scholarship, I know I need to, you know, go to the registrar's office and have them fax over my enrollment verification. So having that planned out, and not thinking they're going to give me the money because they gave it to me last semester. Well, we don't know if you're still enrolled, so that's why it's up to you as a student to send us in that information. So again, I'm no expert, but that's one thing I really want students to understand in terms of you know, scholarships, and staying on top of the information that they need to ensure that they continue to get their money. Alrighty, well, that is it. We went through a lot of good stuff, but I want to thank all of our amazing panelists. They were really, really great in giving you guys a ton of great information about the scholarship application. They made note of certain scholarships and different websites, and I will be sure to include that in the video recap that I'll provide on our blog site. So if you're a student, I'm pretty sure you visit our website a ton. If not, I'm going to email it to you and also put it on social media. So you'll have access to the video, but also to the great websites that they mentioned that would be helpful for you in your scholarship search. But in the meantime, I wanted to, again, thank the amazing panelists. Really thank you all for your time and your dedication and just giving a ton of great information for our students. So that will be the end of our Google Hangout. Find us back here next month. Don't know exactly when, but we'll announce that. And next month we'll be talking about something along the lines of financial aid, but it'll be a little bit different. So until then, you guys have a great Friday, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye.